Welcome to the story of the Billionaire's Bargaining Conversation author, Barbara Dunlop. Here we invite you to listen.
Emma McKinley felt fear as she stepped out of the elevator onto the executive floor of the Garrison Hotel Corporation. But her emotions had already been drained dry over the past few days. Everything had started with her father's sudden death. Then she had discovered the massive debt burdening the family company, the McKinley Inns, a chain of small hotels. And then came the strange, almost unbelievable offer of financial rescue from her younger sister. Now all that remained in her was a single, unwavering decision. And that decision was aimed squarely at Alex Garrison, the CEO of Garrison Hotels. Clutching her handbag tightly against her short-sleeved Donna Karan blouse, she strode forward on her low-heeled mules across the marble-floored hallway. She had never before set foot in Garrison's offices, nor ever had to reason with her family's competitors. But it didn't take much intelligence to identify the double doors at the far end, the ones that led into Alex Garrison's private office. She ignored the glances of the administrative staff whose desks were tucked discreetly into alcoves along the corridor. No one seemed inclined to stop her. Good, she was not in the mood to be stopped. She had no appointment with Mr. Garrison, but she had every right to confront him to his face. How dare he exploit her sister, Katie, just weeks after their father's funeral, with such veiled threats and that inhuman proposal? Emma drew in a deep breath, filling her lungs to their limit. Perhaps she did still have some emotion left after all. "Excuse me, miss," came a woman's voice from the left, where the hallway opened into a sleek reception area. Emma didn't answer. She didn't glance at the woman's desk, nor did she slow down.
10 steps from his door. 8, miss." The voice rose higher and sharper as a well-dressed woman in her 30s sprang to her feet. 5 steps, you can't just...
Emma's hand closed around the ornate golden handle of the door. "Go in there." Emma swung the door open. 4 men in dark suits, seated around a polished mahogany conference table, turned abruptly to stare at her. 2 were grey-haired, their thick eyebrows furrowing in outrage, as if to say she had just committed an unforgivable mistake. The third, a younger blonde man, suppressed a grin, amusement flickering in his bright blue eyes. The fourth man shot to his feet, his leather chair scraping backward. Black hair, dark eyes, broad shoulders. His very stance said he was more than ready to seize her and anyone else who dared violate his privacy. "I'm so sorry."
"Mr. Garrison," gasped the secretary behind Emma. "I tried. It's not your fault."
"Simone." The man's steely grey eyes never left Emma. "Can I help you with something?" Emma's grip on her handbag tightened. The rest of the room seemed to dissolve into mist as her anger surged. She focused on Alex Garrison. "Do you really think I'd let you get away with this?" Simone's mouth fell open. "As you can see," Alex said, his jaw tightening, his voice sharp as metal. "We're in the middle of a meeting. I don't care if you want to make an appointment. I don't want one. Then I must ask you to leave. Do you know who I am?"
"No, liar. I'll call security," Simone said. Alex frowned, studying Emma slowly.
She realized with a shock that he genuinely didn't know who she was.
How could that be?
Katie was the face of McKinley Inns, yes, but still. "Do we need to call security?" he asked. "I'm Emma McKinley." His nostrils flared slightly. He drew a calm breath. Then, after a brief pause, he picked up the gold pen from the table and slipped it into the pocket of his finely tailored jacket. His burgundy silk tie glowed faintly under the soft lights as he straightened to his full height. "If you'll excuse us, gentlemen," he said. "I believe I can spare 5 minutes for Miss McKinley." The men rose to leave.
"Please," Alex said, raising one large hand.
"Miss McKinley and I will use the conference room." He gestured toward a massive oak door, indicating that she should go first. She crossed the office and gripped another intricately carved brass handle. The door opened onto a large, impressive conference room dominated by a long rectangular table, its surface gleaming with polished varnish. 20 burgundy leather chairs surrounded it, and a wall of windows flooded the space with August sunlight, overlooking the rooftops of Manhattan. The door clicked shut behind her, and she turned to face him. "I trust you can make this quick," he said, stepping closer, his black dress shoes silent on the carpet. Up close, he was even taller, broader, more commanding. The sunlight sharpened every line of his face, the square jaw, the severe mouth, the storm-grey eyes. He looked like a man few ever crossed, and lived to boast about it. If she hadn't known he'd been born into privilege, she would have sworn he'd grown up fighting on the streets of Brooklyn. No matter. He was not going to have her sister, or their company. "You will not marry Katie," she said bluntly. He shrugged, careless.
"I think that's up to Katie. My father wouldn't rest easy in his grave. Your
"Financial situation won't change that. I can fix our finances," she said. "Maybe, hopefully. They could always mortgage the vineyard in the Martha's." Alex tilted his head slightly. "I could have the debt you owe erased within 24 hours. Can you stabilize your finances that quickly?" Emma said nothing. He knew damn well she couldn't. It would take weeks, maybe months, to work through the maze of loans, liens, and personal guarantees her father had signed. Her chest tightened painfully. Why had her father died so young? She missed him desperately. She had counted on his guidance for decades to come. "Miss McKinley? Why do you want McKinley Inns?" she demanded. The Garrison chain already had dozens of hotels, larger, grander, more luxurious. McKinley Inns occupied only a small, specialized niche, one Garrison could easily compete with anywhere in the world. "You're joking, right?" She shook her head. "Like anyone else, I want to expand." "You're an opportunity? So you don't care who gets crushed in the process?" His reputation was well-earned. Despite the flattering press he'd received in recent months, Emma wasn't fooled. He was a ruthless corporate predator who took control of companies by buying up their shares, profiting from others' misfortune. He stepped forward, folding his arms. "I don't think Katie made the situation clear."
"I'm doing you a favor." Emma's spine stiffened.
She lifted her chin to meet his gaze.
"By marrying my sister and taking over our company."
"By saving your company from bankruptcy. You can't pay your debts, Miss McKinley. If I don't take you over, someone else will."
"That's capitalism. Don't patronize me." A cold, arrogant smile curved his lips.
"From where I stand, it's a win-win situation. From where I stand, it's lose-lose because you're idealistic and unrealistic. At least I have a heart." He shifted slightly. "Last time I checked, having a heart wasn't a legal requirement for doing business in New York State." "My sister will not marry you." "Did she explain the agreement to you?" Yes, Katie had explained. Alex wanted their company, but he'd spent thousands over the last 2 years polishing his public image, and he dreaded the scandal of being seen bullying 2 recently bereaved sisters. Oh, he still wanted to bully them. He just didn't want anyone to know it. Hence the disguise of a marriage, and all the glowing goodwill that would come with it. "She told me," Emma said tightly. "Then you know you'll keep half the company." His expression darkened.
"And I was a fool to offer that much. You actually think you can buy yourself a bride?" "At that price, yes." Emma honestly didn't know what to say. "Are we finished here?" he asked. "Were they?"
What was she supposed to do now? Make an empty threat?
"Storm out."
Swear she'd never let him touch her precious hotels when both of them knew exactly what he could do. He seemed to sense her hesitation. "No one gets hurt," he said. "Publicly, this benefits both of us. The press will love the story, the merger of 2 hotel dynasties. We'll feed it to the lifestyle magazines, to the female reporters who'll spin it into—" She shoved her cropped hair back from her forehead.
"Do you even hear yourself?"
He blinked. "What do you mean? Don't you see how cold-blooded this plan of yours is?"
"As I said, no one gets hurt. What about Katie?"
"What about David?"
"David? Who's that?" "Her boyfriend. A kind, gentle man she's been seeing for 6 months. He'll be heartbroken and humiliated." Alex waited.
For a split second she thought she saw a flicker of genuine emotion cross his eyes. But then it vanished, replaced once more by that impenetrable steely grey. David will get over it. He can marry her later, when she's worth a lot more money. Emma opened her mouth, but no sound came out. And what about you?
Alex asked into the silence. I'm mostly embarrassed and confused, she answered. An understatement by 100-fold. His eyes widened.
Your emotional state is inappropriate. Do you have a steady boyfriend?
No. And what did that have to do with anything?
Then the problem is solved. What? You'll marry me. Emma's hand clutched the back of the leather chair, afraid she might lose her balance right there. What? Alex stood there, looking perfectly rational as he threw out the most outrageous proposal she had ever heard in her life.
Marry him? Marry him? It really isn't about which sister, he continued in that emotionless tone. I simply chose Katie because she's beautiful. Emma finished for him, straightening from the chair and squaring her shoulders.
For some reason, it hurt to hear him say it out loud. It wasn't as if everyone hadn't thought the same thing, but hearing Alex state it so bluntly, so casually, made it cut even deeper. That's not, I won't marry you and neither will Katie. Alex's voice carried a soft warning. The third option is that I call your creditors. Then you'll have nothing left. Emma gripped the strap of her purse tightly. The third option is that I'll pay what we owe, first thing tomorrow morning. His mouth curved, almost into a smile. In that case, I'll keep my offer open for 24 hours. She turned and strode toward the side door, walking out with all the pride and pretense of courage she could summon, both of which they both knew were fragile. For that alone, she would never forgive him. No need, Mr. Garrison, she said tightly. In these circumstances, he called after her as she reached for the doorknob. You might want to call me Alex, Emma. She didn't look back, but hearing her name on his lips sent a chill down her spine. 2 hours later, the office door closed behind the Rockwell brothers, and Ryan Hayes fixed a stare on Alex. I assume you've clarified the details with her? Alex folded the top file neatly and aligned the stack of papers on his gleaming mahogany desk. Not exactly. Ryan narrowed his eyes. What do you mean, not exactly?
Alex sighed, leaned back in his chair, and rubbed a finger along his temple.
Gunter's plan was sounding more absurd by the minute. I mean, the details are still
somewhat undefined. But you are getting married. I'm trying, Alex snapped. Ryan wagged a finger.
You're not touching McKinley Inns without a legitimate McKinley bride on your arm. For God's sake, Alex, the press will crucify us. Alex clenched his jaw. He had turned this situation over in his mind 1,000 different ways.
If it were up to him, he'd call in the loan right now and take over that damn company.
But this was business, not babysitting amateurs. Still, Ryan and Gunter were the two major shareholders in Garrison Hotels, and both believed that Alex's reputation as a ruthless, hard-nosed executive was damaging their brand. They thought his recent takeover bids had hurt staff morale and affected negotiations with investors. As a result, they were forcing him to behave like a model citizen in public. No arguments, no temper, no scowling. Pretty soon they'd want him kissing babies and helping old ladies across the street. Why don't you marry her yourself? He asked Ryan. Because I don't have an image problem, Ryan shot back. Besides, I'm not the CEO and I'm not the public face of Garrison Hotels. Profits are up 15% this quarter. Alex glanced at his watch. That's nothing. He wasn't about to turn into some softer, friendlier version of himself just to satisfy their public relations scheme. So what exactly are these details? Ryan asked. Alex looked up. What made you switch from Katie? Nothing. It's not Katie anymore.
It's Emma. And she's still deciding. Alex could hardly believe he had proposed to 2 different women within 48 hours. Ryan raised an eyebrow.
I thought you proposed to the beautiful one. The beautiful one said no, so I proposed to Emma instead. She doesn't have a boyfriend. I'd assume not, Ryan joked. Alex's spine stiffened. Emma might not be glamorous like Katie, but that didn't mean she deserved mockery. What's that supposed to mean? It means she's stubborn and intimidating. Alex stood up.
Coward. Emma wasn't stubborn and intimidating.
She was disillusioned and scared. That was under his control if he handled it properly. Ryan rose with him. Either, sister, you have to make it happen, or we'll have to post bond on the project. Post bond? Alex didn't think so. McKinley owned the first rights to a stretch of beachfront property on Cavan Island, and the land's value had skyrocketed after the announcement that it would become the new cruise ship dock. He'd have to soften his approach or find another weakness to exploit, but he wasn't going to push further than this.
Not yet. What are we going to do?
Katie's face was pale as she leaned across the table at Chateau Moulin, the restaurant just off the lobby of the McKinley Hotel on Fifth Avenue. Candlelight flickered across her anxious features, reflecting in the dark windows beyond the park. I don't know, Emma admitted honestly, shaking her head. I'll have to call the bank in the morning. And tell them what? Katie's voice climbed an octave, matching the soft notes of the piano playing in the corner. That will restructure the mortgages, maybe use the Martha's Vineyard property as additional collateral. You know, that won't be...
Enough. Emma didn't answer because Katie was right.
The Vineyard's mortgaged land wouldn't even make a dent in their father's total debt. The McKinleys had been struggling for years. The books were declining, costs were rising. Their father had always been reluctant to let staff go, and major renovations at 3 ski resorts had been postponed while poor snowfall persisted for 2 winters in a row. They were in deep trouble, and Alex Garrison knew it. The man might be immoral, but he wasn't stupid. I'll just have to marry him, Katie said, throwing up her hands in defeat. What about David? I'll explain it to him somehow. Emma took a sip of her martini, mimicking her sister's tone. I'm terribly sorry, darling, but I have to marry this man for his money. I didn't exactly plan for this, you know. There's no way to make it sound good. So...
That means you'll marry him.
Emma didn't respond as the waiter set down their salads. At least you don't have a boyfriend, Katie muttered once he'd gone. Katie straightened, a fragile hope lighting her eyes.
Was that a yes?
No, it wasn't a yes. Then Emma paused, forcing herself to think clearly.
We can't.
It's not right. Just the thought of giving in to that man offends my pride. At least we'd still own half the company. Fair point. Emma took another sip. If Alex called in the loans instead, they'd be lucky to keep even the hotel itself, if only they had more time. If only they knew someone willing to guarantee their debts quickly and generously. If only their father's heart hadn't failed. The 3 of them had always been a team, surviving every storm before, and she was sure they could find a way out of this one too. Emma? Katie prompted softly. Emma picked up her fork and stabbed at a shrimp salad. We need to talk to a lawyer. Katie's blue eyes dimmed under the candlelight.
You mean...
Declare bankruptcy? Emma inhaled deeply. No, they wouldn't declare bankruptcy. Not when there was one other option left, one that might be bearable. They'd hand their fate over to Alex Garrison. If they didn't, they'd lose everything, and he'd destroy their father's life's work by tomorrow. At least with Alex, there was a chance. If they made a profit for a few years, maybe they could buy the hotels back. And it wasn't as if Emma had a boyfriend waiting in the wings, nor was she likely to find one anytime soon. A hotel manager with plain manners and a work schedule that kept her moving half the year wasn't exactly prime material for a whirlwind romance. In truth, a marriage on paper wouldn't be such a huge burden. A fair contract, a few staged photos, and they'd rarely have to see each other again. She looked straight into Katie's eyes, giving herself no time to reconsider. We need a lawyer to make sure Alex can't do anything crazy with our little family hotel. Katie's eyes widened.
You're really going to do it?
Emma set down her fork and drained her glass.
I'm going to do it.
Mrs. Nash had been calling Alex Alex his entire life, but ever since he'd moved out of his penthouse apartment and back to the family estate on Long Island 6 months ago, another one of Ryan's grand schemes to improve his public image, she'd been instructed to call him Mr. Garrison every time she did, Alex would glance around as though his father might hear. His father had been dead for 3 years, but still had the power to make Alex flinch. It was bad enough that Alex had taken over his father's study. He didn't need to shoulder the man's name as well. "Call me Alex," he muttered. Looking up from the financial section, Mrs. Nash squared her shoulders in the doorway. "Mr. Garrison?" Her indeterminate British accent sharpened noticeably when she was displeased. "Ah, Miss McKinley is here to see you." Alex snapped the newspaper along its fold, his senses alert.
Who? Her grey-blue eyes flickered with amusement.
"Miss Emma McKinley, sir." "All right, now you're just deliberately defying me." "Sir?" There was an unmistakable twinkle behind her gaze. "Alex, it's Alex. You've changed the diamond pattern curtains and that odd-smelling potpourri." She sniffed, unimpressed. "And I dare say it hasn't helped much, has it?" Alex set the paper down on the gleaming mahogany desk and rose from his high-backed leather chair. "At least we've managed to drop the sir, haven't we?" "Yes, Mr. Garrison." He moved closer to her on his way to the door. "You're fired." Her expression remained calm.
I think not. Because you know where the bodies are buried?
"Because you never remember the combination to the wine cellar." He paused.
Excellent point. Very good then.
"Sir." "Insufferable," he muttered as he passed her. "Will Miss McKinley be staying for lunch?" Good question. He wondered whether Emma would agree and make both their lives easier, or stand there, all haughty defiance, and make his miserable. He figured it was a 50-50 chance. He drew a deep breath.
I don't know. Mrs. Nash nodded and swept into the study to tidy the papers and erase any trace of his presence.
It was strange, living in a house that forgot him the moment he left a room. Sometimes he left subtle signs behind, a book slightly out of place on the shelf, a sculpture nudged half an inch to the left on the mantel, but he'd yet to catch her slipping. He descended the grand staircase under the watchful eyes of his ancestors. The portraits were dustless, perfectly straight. His father hung at the end, stern and judging, probably wishing he could still torment Alex from the great beyond. Alex imagined the old man hated death most because it left him silent while
Alex ran the family business like a madman. He turned the
corner and saw the latest development in his business plan standing beneath the domed skylight of the marble foyer, clutching a floral handbag to the front of a tailored ivory dress. Her chestnut brown hair brushed her shoulders, tucked neatly behind her ears, held up by sunglasses perched atop her head. Her lashes were dark against coffee brown eyes, her lips glossed pink, diamond studs gleaming at her ears. Perfectly groomed and clearly nervous, that could be a good sign, or a very bad one. Emma. Alex raised a hand, deciding to pretend their previous exchanges of insults had never happened. "Alex." She gave a curt nod, short and clipped. "Would you like to come in?" he asked, gesturing down the hallway. She glanced warily into the long corridor. "To my office," he added. "We'll be more comfortable there." After a brief hesitation, she nodded. "All right. Thank you. No problem." He waited until she was beside him, then began walking. "How was the traffic?" he asked, immediately regretting the impulse to make small talk. He wasn't nervous. He was calm, unflappable when it came to business negotiations. And this was just another deal. If she said no, she said no. He'd change her mind or move on to plan B. Either way, Ryan was letting this wedding situation go too far. Alex's future couldn't depend on Miss McKinley's whims. His study was, as expected, spotless once more. The newspaper folded and centered perfectly before his desk.
He knew he should take the seat behind it, the position of power.
But instead he gestured toward one of the tall backed chairs by the stone fireplace. "Please, sit." She nodded, smoothing her ivory dress as she crossed her long legs and set her dainty purse beside her. Then she folded her hands neatly in her lap and looked up. He banished the image of her legs from his mind and sat opposite. "Traffic was fine," she said. He nodded. "Time to get to business." "So you've decided?" She leaned back slightly, then nodded. "Yes, I've decided." He He tilted his head, and she twisted a sapphire and emerald ring around her finger. "I'll marry you." She sounded like she was agreeing to her own execution. Well, that made his life easier. He'd almost feel guilty saddling himself with a reluctant wife who would curb his social life and his sex life. But given her expression and body language, that part of the marriage clearly wouldn't be an issue, which meant he was effectively single. For now. "Excellent. Thank you," he managed to say. She nodded and stood. "Wait," she frowned. "Don't you think we should discuss this further?" "Discuss what?" she asked. But she sat back down and crossed her legs again. "For starters, who exactly do you plan to tell?" "That I'm marrying you." He shook his head. "That it's fake." "Oh, yes, that detail. My business partners know. My sister knows. Who else?" "My lawyer." She leaned forward. "Oh, you can expect him to call about a prenuptial agreement." Alex laughed aloud. "You want a prenup?" "Of course. You did check my net worth in Forbes last year?" A prenup protected him far more than it protected her. Her brown eyes held mild disapproval.
"Of course not. I couldn't care less about your net worth." He found that hard to believe.
But whatever. The important thing was to keep this absurd situation moving forward. "First thing we need to do is announce the engagement." "I thought we just did." He opened his mouth, but she kept talking. "You said, 'Marry me or I'll ruin you.' And I chose the lesser of two evils." Her lips tightened. "And you should know there's nothing remotely romantic about that." Sarcasm, really? She was about to gain millions while he got a PR-friendly business deal, and she was the one being snide. "You don't sound very grateful," he said. "Do your blackmail victims usually express gratitude?" He shook his head, half amused. So much for the panicked, pliable Emma. "Were you expecting champagne and roses?" "I was hoping for a bank loan and a decent accountant." "Well, you've got me instead." She nodded slowly, looking down her straight nose at him.
"So I've noticed. This petty sparring was getting them nowhere."
Alex stood, restless energy burning through him. "If we're doing this, there are a few things we need to handle first. Like learning to tolerate each other? Like convincing the press we're in love?" Her lips curved into a slow, wry smile, the first real one he'd seen. It lit her eyes to molten gold and revealed a dimple in her right cheek. When her tongue brushed her front teeth, desire jolted through him straight to his toes. At this rate, he'd have to rethink who the most beautiful woman he'd ever met was. "What?" he asked, suppressing the reaction. "I've just figured out the difference between us." Alex narrowed his eyes. Had he missed something? "I'm grounded in reality," she said, "and you chase the impossible." He wouldn't put it quite that way, but it wasn't entirely wrong. "Maybe we can learn to tolerate each other," she continued. "But I can't imagine convincing anyone we're in love." Alex stepped closer, catching the faint scent of her perfume, and fought another pulse of unwanted attraction. This was madness.
He wouldn't be drawn to Emma. "You know what your biggest problem is?"
he asked. She stood, but he still towered over her by several inches.
"No, but I'm sure you'll tell me. It's your defeatist attitude. Actually, my biggest problem is you. Sweetheart, I'm your salvation. Devaluing me already, are we?"
"When you work hard and pay attention, you don't have to feel devalued." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "Only 6 people on Earth know I don't love you."
"I'll convince the rest? The whole world?"
She arched a brow. "Think big, Emma. Think realistic, Alex. We don't have to like each other. Statistically?"
"I think we might." "Then you'll have to be the exception." Alex grinned.
He could toss barbs as easily as she could. "And darling, I'm exceptional." She rolled her eyes. "Maybe I'll have something in the prenup, prohibiting your ego." "That might work, if your lawyer's better than mine." She stepped back, half a pace. "So that's your big plan?" "We gaze adoringly at each other in public, while our lawyers tear each other apart behind the scenes." He gestured to her chair.
"That's about right."
"Now back to our engagement." She sat again, her chest rising and falling beneath the tailored dress. I suppose we'll be discussing some flashy ring to get everyone's attention.
Absolutely. He relaxed into his seat.
He'd thought this through, at least one of them had. We don't want them wondering if we're engaged. We want them talking about how we got engaged. Emma hesitated. I'm not sure I like this. You're an American, aren't you? She shook her head, and he saw the exact moment she realized what he meant. Her brown eyes darted, and her pale skin drained of color. No. Oh no.
Not a jumbo screen in Times Square. Make it a headline event. I'll kill you. Evil intent.
But not mutual desire, when you may not have noticed, but Katie's the face of McKinley. She's the outgoing one. If you recall, I tried to marry Katie. Her expression froze for a second, and he realized how insulting that must have sounded. She's taken, Emma said firmly. Deal with it. I didn't mean... Of course you did.
And no giant public screens. Got it?
Alex hadn't meant he preferred Katie. He didn't care either way. Still, another rejection would be overkill and likely completely deserved if he kept goading Emma. Wonder how I'll surprise you then, he asked instead.
Add a touch of realism to the situation. This is ridiculous, Emma said, sitting upright, all composure and earnestness.
We should be talking about the corporate merger.
Who cares how we got engaged?
Had she forgotten his entire problem?
This was about his image, his reputation. I care, he said flatly.
Sarcasm was one thing, but she needed to understand his stake in this. You get a fiancé for financial security. I get a massive PR boost.
This plan makes sense. This ruse makes sense. She opened her mouth to protest, but he cut her off. Make no mistake.
Emma, you and I are going to convince the world we're in love, or we'll die trying. I don't know how you're going to pull this off, Emma told Katie as they walked out to tennis court 12 at the Connecticut club. Distracted by Alex's plan, she'd lost to her sister, sets, games and match. She wasn't an actress, nor a public figure. While other hotel heiresses courted attention and tabloid fame, Emma guarded her privacy jealously. Is he really that much of an idiot? Katie asked sympathetically, nodding toward an empty white patio table with an umbrella. Not more of an idiot than expected, Emma admitted. The problem is he's full of ridiculous media stunt ideas, and I'm definitely not good at playing the blushing bride of Wall Street. Katie frowned, sitting down. Well, I suppose he has to be getting something out of it. He gets our hotels. Half. Emma arched a brow. Did Katie honestly think Alex was being reasonable? We promised him a wife, not a cover girl. Katie shrugged. Because he wants to show you off a little. So why don't you just do what he says? Emma pulled off her headband and shook out her hair. Because doing what he says would be repetitive and humiliating.
And if you recall, it would also be a very big lie. Katie gave a smug little smile.
There's nothing wrong with looking gorgeous while you're lying. Emma grabbed a bottle of water from the ice bucket in the middle of the table. Stop mocking me. Sorry, it's my problem, not yours. Katie's tone softened immediately. Of course not.
I'm grateful.
You know I'm grateful, Emma sighed. I just have to find a way to convince him to keep things quiet. A fair agreement.
A small classified notice. Katie reached for another bottle of water and twisted off the cap.
Or you could borrow some of my clothes and make a stunning entrance at the party on his arm. That wouldn't help anything. It wouldn't hurt you either. You work too hard, you know that? Not hard enough to save the company. Hey, you're saving it right now. Emma leaned back in her chair. She wasn't saving the company through cunning or business skills, that was certain.
It feels like prostitution. No sex, right?
No sex? Then it's not prostitution, is it? Cheer up, Emma. We'll go to Saks. Saks? Oh, sure. That'll fix everything. Because apparently, once she had the right wardrobe, she could strut through Manhattan tossing careless glances in Alex's direction. She shuddered at the thought. Uh-oh, Katie whispered, her attention shifting over Emma's shoulder. Uh-oh, what?
He's here. Who's here? Emma turned, trying to see. Alex? Katie said. Emma froze. What?
Alex is here, She swung back to face Katie. He's not a member. Apparently,
He is now? This is a private club. As if the receptionist is going to tell Alex Garrison he can't have a day pass. Emma's chest tightened until it burned. What's he doing? Heading this way? No, Katie nodded.
oh yes. Then she broke into a dazzling smile. Hello, Alex? A warm hand landed on Emma's bare shoulder, slick with a trace of perspiration. Her muscles tensed under his touch, and something strange leapt through her, like she'd never been touched by a man before. She resisted the urge to jerk away. Hello?
Darling! Alex's deep voice murmured beside her ear. Then his lips brushed her forehead, and the breath fled from her lungs.
It wasn't even a real kiss, just a soft, fleeting touch, but it sent her pulse racing and her nerves into a whirl of chaos. She had to tell herself, firmly, silently, to calm down, to shut this madness out. He gave her shoulder one last squeeze, then settled his tall frame into the empty chair beside her and casually helped himself to a bottle of water. So how's the match going? He wore a white polo shirt with a single blue stripe on the shoulder. The open collar revealed a strong tanned neck, and the knit fabric stretched smoothly over his broad shoulders and defined chest. When Emma didn't answer, he raised a dark eyebrow at her. Fine, she managed awkwardly. Now that she'd recovered a bit, anger began to boil inside her. A kiss at the Connecticut Club was almost as bad as a giant screen broadcast in Times Square, and Alex knew it. The glances from nearby tables said everything. He nodded easily.
Excellent! She's been beating me all morning, Katie said, her tone not quite friendly, an obvious jab on Emma's behalf. Emma leaned closer to Alex, hissing under her breath. I thought we agreed not to discuss this.
He draped his arm lazily along the back of her chair.
I got tired of talking. Well, I didn't, really.
What a shame, he glanced around. Because I think it's too late. Bastard, Emma muttered, realizing he was winning through sheer audacity and that calculated display of sensuality.
At least a dozen people had seen that kiss. Alex smiled, then raised his voice slightly and looked at Katie. Congratulations on the win, Katie beamed.
Emma seems to have trouble concentrating this morning. Really? Alex tightened his arm around Emma again, teasing her, and her body reacted with an annoying jolt. She hated it. She refused to like it.
It had to be nerves, nothing else? Something to do with last night?
He asked loudly. 2 tables away, Marion Thurston's carefully plucked eyebrows shot up toward her dyed hairline. It took her only a moment to gather her wits before she whipped out her phone and hit a speed dial button. It didn't take a genius to guess whom she was calling. Marion Thurston was infamous for feeding gossip to Leanne Haidt, the Society columnist. Emma leaned toward Alex again.
I am going to kill you. You don't have the nerve. I don't even care anymore. Alex's grin widened.
Are you free tomorrow night? He turned to Katie. You too. I've reserved a table at the Teddy Bear Trust Charity Casino Gala. I don't gamble, Emma said flatly. Then it's time you learned, he replied smoothly. I'll be there, Katie chimed in. Can David come?
David might be.
Difficult to fit in. I don't want to learn, Emma muttered. Blackjack, Alex said.
I'll stake you. You will not, his tone hardened.
I'll stake you. Fine. Maybe you'll want to tattoo your name on my forehead while you're at it. He took her hand and brushed a kiss across her knuckles, his voice gentle, but his eyes sharp. No, just a diamond on your finger will do. We got trouble before the wedding, Ryan said, dropping into the guest chair across from Alex's desk. Alex looked up from the McKinley Inn's brochures spread before him. What kind of trouble? The kind that starts with Dream Lodge and ends with Caven Island. Adrenaline shot through Alex's body. Murdoch knows about Caven.
He must, Ryan replied, leaning forward in his leather chair. There's no other explanation. A chill spread through Alex's veins. What's he doing?
He's bidding on McKinley. That son of a bitch. Alex slammed a foot against the floor, possibilities flashing through his mind. The whole chain? Ryan shook his head. Just the Caven property. Alex closed his eyes for a second, pressing a hand to the back of his neck.
And the women keep the rest?
It was the dream come true for Emma. Yeah, Ryan said. How long do we have? He's set to make his offer Monday morning. Who's your source?
Adam down in accounting.
His brother-in-law heard that Williamson Smythe is reviewing the same geological report we used. He pieced that together. Ryan shook his head. Adam doesn't know a thing. I pulled it from 6 separate sources. We're still the only major player who knows the full story. Alex's mind ran through every possible scenario, each ending with Dream Lodge winning and Garrison losing.
I can't let him make that offer. Ryan nodded. Alex had to shut Murdoch down.
The only way to do that before Monday morning was to marry Emma. I wonder how she feels about Vegas. You can't marry Emma in the next 48 hours, Ryan warned. Alex snorted.
Our jets at JFK, I could marry her in 5. You don't think a quick Vegas wedding might look a little opportunistic?
Alex's tone snapped. I'd rather look opportunistic than lose the entire deal. And what happens when Murdoch talks to her? By the time Murdoch talks to her, she'll already be Mrs. Alex Garrison. Ryan shook his head. Not secure enough. We can't let Murdoch talk to her at all. We can't stop him from talking to her. This is a free country, and Dream Lodge has as many media connections as we do. Ryan leaned back, crossing one leg over the other. We can if he thinks there's no point in talking to her. There are hundreds of millions at stake. Exactly, Ryan said quietly. And we'll make him think it's all already ours. Alex caught the glint of strategy in Ryan's eyes. Calm washed back over him as he leaned behind his desk and began spinning a gold pen between his fingers. How? We need 4 things, Ryan said. Alex listened carefully. There was a reason he'd made Ryan his partner. The man was a strategic genius. McKinley's financial statements, Ryan began. Some sensitive information from Dream Lodge, a quick and dirty marketing model, and a diamond ring on Emma McKinley's finger. Alex could handle the ring and the marketing. He figured he could come up with a plausible excuse for Emma's missing financial reports over the weekend. But direct contact with Dream Lodge? That was another matter. What kind of information? Ryan hesitated just a second.
Could you call Nathaniel?
Alex blinked at the name of his cousin.
He's a thief. There are hundreds of millions at stake. Alex nodded slowly.
Right, and Nathaniel's one of them. Emma slipped the thick white robe with McKinley's logo over her damp skin, put on her glasses, and unclipped the pin that held her hair up, letting it fall loose. The soft hum of the hot tub motor whispered from the back as she walked across the penthouse from the bedroom to the living room. She had once dreamed of living an anonymous life in a hotel. Now she completely embraced the idea. The professional cleaning service, the convenience of hot meals available at any hour of the day or night. McKinley's headquarters were on the 3rd floor of the boutique hotel on 5th Avenue, so on blustery winter days, she was only an elevator ride away from work. She pressed a button on the remote and curled up in the corner of the wine-coloured sectional sofa, tossing a sequined brocade pillow aside. It was 11:15 on a Friday night. She had skipped dinner and was thinking about a cheese tray and a glass of Cabernet, just in time for the Business Week wrap-up on ANN. She called down to the concierge to order room service, then settled in to watch Marvin Coventry interview the CEO of Mediterranean Energy, a company under scrutiny after merging with a British firm and allegedly funneling money to a UN representative's nephew. A knock came at the door a few minutes into the interview, and Emma glanced over her shoulder as she went to open it for Carissa. "Did they remember the grapes?" she asked, while the CEO stumbled through the reporter's question.
Yes, his shareholders deserved an explanation. I'm not sure, came a man's voice. Emma turned and found herself face to face with Alex Garrison.
Her eyes widened, and she clutched the robe tightly around her body. "I thought you were Carissa." "I'm Alex." His gaze lingered on the robe, her tousled hair, and the oversized glasses perched awkwardly on her face. "What are you doing here?" She hadn't expected to see him until tomorrow night at the Teddy Bear Trust charity event, and she was absolutely not ready for another round with him tonight. She pulled the robe tighter, feeling painfully underdressed. He glanced at the briefcase in his left hand. "I thought you wanted to see my financial statements. At 11:30 at night. You said you wanted a prenuptial agreement. Of course you did, but not now." Right now, she wanted to sleep and rebuild her composure before facing him again.
There's no time like the present. His eyes flicked toward the room behind her.
And he took a subtle step forward. Emma moved sideways to block him, just as the soft hum of the approaching service cart signaled that Carissa was arriving. The woman paused mid-step and glanced curiously at Alex. "Should I bring another plate?"
"How thoughtful," Alex said smoothly.
And before Emma could protest, he had already slipped inside. She didn't want to make a scene in front of Carissa, but the man was relentless. She stepped aside as the cart rolled in. "Nice setup," Alex murmured, taking in the Persian rug, the marble fireplace.
"And the Tiffany chandelier." "Thanks," Emma replied stiffly.
While Carissa arranged the cheese tray, wine, and fresh flowers on the dining table. When the door finally closed behind the housekeeper, Emma cinched her robe again. "This is not a good time." He set the briefcase on the table and raised both palms in mock surrender.
"Oh, I'm sorry. I just came straight from a meeting." His intense gaze stripped away every layer she had on. "I thought you had the night off."
She asked. "No, I didn't. I had a conference call, 3 supply contracts to approve, and a budget meeting that ran past 10. But now you're free." He opened the case. She shot him a sharp look. "Do I look free?" He fought a smirk. "You look—" "Don't say it. Cute," he finished. "I was going to say ridiculous." His brow furrowed briefly.
"Why are you always— What do you want, Alex?"
He shook his head, then pulled an envelope from the briefcase. "To go over the financial reports." "Call me in the morning," she said. All she wanted was sleep. "I've been tied up all day." "And I've been tied up all night." He fell silent, eyes darting toward her bedroom door. "You have company?" It took her a second to realize what he meant. "No, I don't. I thought maybe you were having one last wild fling. I'm not that kind of girl." He studied her.
"Aren't you?"
"And if I were, would I be dressed like this?"
"I told you, you look adorable," she groaned in frustration. He stepped closer, setting the briefcase down.
"Really, Emma, I don't know where all this insecurity comes from." She had no idea how to respond to that.
"None at all. You're a beautiful woman," he said softly. "Stop it," she hissed.
He was clearly using his charm, spinning lies to throw her off balance for his own reasons. He stopped just in front of her, his intense gaze sending shivers through her body. "Don't underestimate yourself, Emma." She tried to breathe normally, fighting the surge of heat that spread through her limbs. "You have surprising taste." His mouth curved into a slow, dangerous smile. It was a beautiful mouth, a sexy mouth, set under eyes like laser beams that made a woman feel like the only person on earth.
Emma felt herself being pulled in by his magnetism. "You think I prefer silk and satin?"
he asked gently. "I think you like black lace and high heels." The words slipped out before she could stop them, and she immediately regretted it. His nostrils flared slightly.
"Do I?" His eyes gleamed. "Not with me," she said firmly. He glanced quickly at her neckline.
"Why not?" This was maddening. "Alex," he gestured toward the bedroom door. "You have something in there, don't you?"
Oh, dear God, she did! A tiny teddy bear and the matching lingerie set Katie had given her for her birthday. Not that Alex hadn't seen worse. A low chuckle rumbled from his chest.
"Still waters run deep." "I don't have anything," she lied. He brushed a strand of hair from her face.
Of course you do.
Go on, Emma, let me see the secrets you're hiding. She blinked, forcing herself not to melt under his gaze. She needed strength, focus. He wanted something from her, and she would make sure it was on her terms. But then his palm rested against her temple, derailing every thought. His fingers slipped through her hair, sending waves of heat through her skin. Her lips softened, her body swayed closer. His hand slid down the back of her neck, drawing her toward him. His head tilted, and she followed, breath catching, waiting. Then he stopped. She could feel his hesitation.
Yes, her primal instinct screamed. No, her reason countered. His breath brushed her skin. My deep, dark secret is...
He paused. Another pause. One, he sighed. Your financial report? The words hit like ice water, and she was grateful. Really, kissing Alex would have been incredibly stupid. Not that it wouldn't happen eventually, but not here, not now, half-dressed and alone. She pushed the thought away.
Fine, but then you leave. He nodded quickly, the gleam in his eyes dimming. She wasn't going to explore that look.
This was business, strictly business. She crossed to the computer, connected to the financial server, and pulled up last quarter's balance sheet, hitting print. Alex stood silently as the printer whirred and spat out 20 pages. She gathered them and handed him the stack. Thank you, he said, reaching for the door. Take your time reviewing them, she replied, counting the seconds until he left, but he hesitated, eyes narrowing. His mouth parted.
Emma! Good night, she cut in firmly. He exhaled through his teeth, then gave a small nod.
Good night. When the door shut, she locked it and gripped the metal bolt tightly. Whatever that was, it would not happen again. She had made a deal with Alex. It was nothing more than business, no different than hiring a front desk clerk in Hawaii or serving cocktails in Whistler. Her father had always admired her ability to roll up her sleeves and get the job done. In this case, maybe she'd keep her mouth shut. Still, she told herself, she would kiss Alex eventually, but only as a formality, a business gesture. Certainly not half naked and trembling for him. Shivering, she backed away from the door, reminding herself she was doing exactly what her father would have done, making the best of a bad situation. When her mother died, her father had been left with 2 little girls. He'd picked himself up, learned to braid hair, wallpaper bedrooms, and bake enormous chocolate chip oatmeal cookies. When their Montreal hotel burned down, he didn't lose hope. With courage and optimism, he rebuilt from the ashes. Yes, Emma could be afraid. She could suppress the hormones that tangled her thoughts about Alex. She wanted to make her father proud, or at least not ashamed. By Saturday night, Emma was on high alert. When the limo pulled up at Tavern on the Green in Central Park, she waited until Alex stepped out before sliding across the seat. Thinking of the reporters beyond the red rope, she smoothed her short, off-the-shoulder champagne cocktail dress and prepared to make a graceful exit. At the open door, Alex turned toward her, offering his hand like a perfect gentleman. She hesitated. She didn't want to touch him. Not as the very first thing, but there was no polite way to refuse. Surrounded by twinkling white lights and glowing lanterns at the entrance gate, she drew a deep breath and placed her hand in his. The instant their fingers met, a dangerous warmth rippled up her arm. She smiled bravely as the cameras flashed from every direction. Her gaze accidentally met his, those grey, affectionate eyes, and she looked away quickly, pretending to smile for the photographers. It was bad enough he was holding her hand. Worse, that her body was remembering how it felt. Then Alex slid an arm around her waist, pulling her close for the photographers. They were pressed together from knees to shoulders,
and she could feel every breath he took. Like you're madly in love with me, he murmured. I'm trying, she said through her smile.
cursing her treacherous body for reacting to him. Try harder. He waved once more to the crowd, then guided her toward the entrance. Emma resisted slightly.
Katie and David are right behind us. They can catch up. But until you're a better actress. We're not standing near the paparazzi. I'm smiling, she muttered. That's a grimace, because I'm in pain. His arm instantly loosened. I'm hurting you?
Emotionally, she said. And it wasn't a lie. Spare me, he sighed, tightening his grip again as a balding man in a tailored suit approached them warmly. Mr. Garrison, the man said enthusiastically, so glad you could join us. Good evening, Maxime, Alex replied, shaking his hand. Allow me to introduce my, girlfriend, Emma McKinley. His voice was tender when he said her name, and Emma's heart stumbled for a beat as Maxime took her hand in both of his. Maxim is the chairman of the Teddy Bear Trust, Alex explained. The burly man grinned widely. And you're the president of McKinley Inns. We haven't had the pleasure, but I've heard wonderful things about you, Ms. McKinley. Please, call me Emma, she said, with a genuine smile. I have such admiration for the Teddy Bear Trust. This organization had built a new children's shelter last year at St. Xavier's, and they had funded countless research projects on childhood cancer. This way, please, said Maxime, gesturing through the glass doorway toward the tavern on the green restaurant. Drinks are served in the main dining room, with French windows opening directly onto the terrace. And may I suggest the ballroom as the starting point for the casino games? Blackjack?
Alex asked, flashing Maxime a crooked grin. Maxime laughed.
You didn't have much luck last year. Then he winked at Emma. But I'm sure you'll bring him luck tonight. I'll do my best, she promised Maxime, thinking that karma probably wouldn't punish them too quickly for deceiving the entire city. Then Alex took her hand again and nodded to the doorman as he placed a quick kiss on her knuckles. Emma tried to keep her head clear as they stepped into the lavishly decorated interior. The hallway glittered with ornate crystal and stained glass, while the chandeliers above reflected the lights as they began walking down the curved corridor. She caught her own reflection in an angled mirror, shivering at the image of Alex, tall and straight, his strong hand resting at her waist, her hair falling just below the deep V of her shimmering gown. Would you like something to drink? His deep voice rumbled through her. A Chablis, a pure white wine made in the Chablis region of eastern France, she replied, then cleared her throat against the sensual tremor in it. They were acting. He was pretending to date her for the sake of the reporters and other guests, and she was pretending to love him for exactly the same reason. He pointed toward a doorway. Through there, next. They entered the crystal hall, meeting the curious stares of other guests. Did they recognize Alex? Did they recognize her? She craned her neck, glancing back toward her sister's reassuring face.
We've lost Katie and David. We don't need chaperones. But tonight is for you and me. He smiled,
nodding and waving to someone across the room. They stopped by the bar, and Alex rested his forearm on the polished surface, ordering their drinks before turning his attention back to Emma. You should try to relax and enjoy yourself. Relax?
Under these circumstances?
She couldn't imagine relaxing around Alex at all. In a few minutes?
You'll start spending my money, he said. I've never gambled in my life. She hadn't meant it to come out sounding so fragmented.
But it did. Doesn't surprise me. He scooped a handful of almonds from a crystal bowl on the counter and tossed them into his mouth. What's that supposed to mean? It means you're far too cautious by nature. The waiter placed their drinks on coasters bearing the Teddy Bear Trust logo. I am not, Emma insisted. Alex tucked a bill beneath his glass and nodded his thanks to the man. Oh, yes, you are, he chuckled softly as they walked away. She exhaled sharply in irritation. You could prove me wrong. you know. He handed her the glass of Chablis, gently guiding her back toward the corridor. Just go to the blackjack table and make sure everyone knows I'm your bankroll. She sipped the crisp wine, letting the alcohol loosen her nerves.
Is that what modern city men do for the women they love?
Well, since there's no longer a need to slay a mammoth for you, yes, that's what we do. She hid an unexpected smile behind another sip. And if I'd rather have the mammoth instead?
Are you trying to be expensive?
Maybe, he pointed toward another passage. This way to the tables. To be honest, I don't even know how to play blackjack. He shrugged. It's easy. Outside the glass wall, the lawns glittered with lights, lanterns swaying in the breeze, as well-dressed guests moved in and out of the restaurant and terrace. Dealers in black tuxedos and bow ties chatted with guests. As they dealt cards, Alex guided her toward a green felt table with high stools and small white
squares printed across the surface. Up, he whispered near her ear.
And she tried not to react to his nearness. But then his arm brushed lightly against the bare skin of her back, sending a shiver down her spine and energy pulsing to places it definitely shouldn't. Ah, there you are. Katie's voice broke in.
This is incredible.
Incredible? Emma repeated, grateful for the interruption. Katie jumped onto the stool beside her. Two men already sat at the far ends of the table, facing the dealer.
That left a seat in the middle. David stood behind Katie's chair.
And Emma smiled at him. Buy me some chips, Katie said to David. Out of the corner of her eye, Emma saw Alex place a few bills before the dealer. I think we'll go try the roulette table, David said to Katie. Katie tapped the felt. I want to play blackjack. The dealer slid 4 stacks of purple chips toward Emma. She turned halfway to Alex. What do I do now?
She whispered. Place your bet, he whispered back. Put it on the white squares. She could almost see his grin.
She breathed in his scent, the fabric of his jacket brushing her bare back. The man at the far end placed 2 green chips and 1 black one. What do the colors mean? She asked Alex. Don't worry about it. The dealer slid a stack of black chips in front of Katie. Emma pushed 2 purple ones into the square before her, and the dealer flipped the cards over. She glanced at everyone's hands, wondering if the man had made a mistake. She leaned toward Alex. They can see? It's fine.
You're playing against the dealer. Well, the dealer can see what I have, she hissed. How is that fair?
Trust me. Emma tilted her head, looking into his eyes.
Trust him? Was he cheating?
He'd made that perfectly clear last night, somewhere between gross annual revenue and depreciation, that he looked out for his own best interests. In fact, he'd strongly encouraged her to do the same. Of course, in this case, it was his money. Why should she care if she lost? Emma? He nodded toward the table. Look at your hand, she glanced down. A queen and an ace. You win, he said, as the dealer pushed a few chips into her square. Draw another, Katie said, beside her. Even though it was pure luck, a warm sense of pride spread through Emma's chest. She'd won. Her very first game of blackjack, and she'd won. Whatever else happened tonight, at least she had that. Busted, Katie sighed as David shook his head. The dealer cleared the cards. Bet more this time, Alex said. Emma stacked another pile of chips in her square. At this rate, Alex muttered, it's going to be a long night. Why aren't you playing? He leaned closer, his hand brushing her bare shoulder. Because we want the world to see me spending money on you, remember? She turned, her nose nearly brushing his cheek. His intoxicating scent surrounded her, and his broad palm moved lightly across her shoulder. It was far too easy to get lost in the illusion. She reached for her glass.
What if you were the one gambling instead of me?
He chuckled. Doesn't work that way. Now place your bet. You're a control freak. Yep. Get used to it. He straightened, ending the conversation. Fine. He wanted to bankroll her. Emma pushed her entire stack of chips into the white square.
Take that, Alex Garrison. Atta girl, he said. Good heavens, Emma, Katie exclaimed. Emma turned to her sister. That's $10,000. What?
Emma nearly choked. The first card was already down before her. "Those are $500 chips," Katie pointed out. Emma's stomach clenched. She quickly reached for the stack, but Alex stopped her, his hand covering hers. "Too late," he warned. She stared at him, eyes wide with panic. She couldn't bet $10,000 on a single hand.
"That was insane. Play," he said calmly. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Tell you what, Alex?"
"Play." "No." She started to rise, but his hand held her in place. "You won," he said. "What?" He pointed to her cards. "You won again. You really should gamble more often." Emma slowly looked down at her hand, a 10 and an ace. Her knees went weak, and she sank back into her seat. "Busted again," Katie muttered. David shifted behind her. "How much have you lost?" Emma asked her sister. David didn't look thrilled about it. 500. Emma winced. "Oh dear!" Katie tossed a couple more chips into her square. "I think we should move to roulette," David suggested. "This is fun," Katie said. "We're having fun, aren't we, Emma?" "I'm enjoying this," Alex said, amusement sharpening his tone. David's nostrils flared in irritation. The dealer dealt again. "Do you know you just bet $15,000? Katie asked. Emma's eyes flew to her chips. "Oh dear Lord, why hadn't Alex stopped her?" After a long, tense minute, she won with 3 cards, 19 points. She immediately swiveled her chair to the side.
"I can't play anymore." Alex braced the chair with his knee, keeping it from sliding back.
"You're on a winning streak." Their legs brushed, the warmth of his body seeping through her thigh. "I'm going to have a heart attack," she told him, and meant it. She started to climb down from the tall chair, and he caught her quickly.
"You can't walk away from hot luck." "Look at me." She moved, and oh God, she hadn't expected to be caught fully against him.
Half a step closer, and she was wrapped in his arms. If she tilted her head slightly, they could kiss. Or she could bury her face in his neck and taste if he was as good as he smelled. Of course she didn't, but the urge was fierce. So it was only imagination. He looked at her with smoky eyes for a long moment. "All right," he said finally.
"Have you ever played craps?" "No." "All right." Then he gestured toward the hallway, breaking the spell.
"The craps tables are in the chestnut room." She turned to Katie. "You coming?" "Not to craps," David said. Katie studied her boyfriend's face. "We'll catch up," she told them. Emma nodded, then started walking with Alex. "At least let's switch to $10 chips?" "No. I can't bet $500 a hand." Alex clearly didn't worry about the high stakes, but she certainly did. "You're already up several thousand," he said. That was true. She felt a little better. She might lose it all, but he'd still be fine. "If you don't start losing soon," Alex added. "The teddy bear trust will go bankrupt." Emma stopped, her mouth forming an involuntary O. She had completely forgotten about the teddy bear trust. "I'm doing this all wrong, aren't I?" Alex smiled, his hand at her back, guiding her forward again. "I like to think of it as good publicity," she sighed in frustration. Then suddenly his lips brushed lightly against her forehead.
"You're delightful, you know that?"
Her chest tightened at the compliment. But then Edwina and Frederick Waddington appeared beside Alex, and she realized the compliment was just part of the act. Everything tonight was part of the act. Alex wasn't a tender, generous philanthropist. He was simply playing his role. She forced a smile as he made the introductions.
"No more daydreaming. No more closeness.
No more physical reactions. From this moment on, she would remember. It was all just a game.